Thank you, Jim, and thank you, fellow panelists, and thank you to Mitch, as well as Joe and the conference organizers for inviting me. I actually thought I'd get this year off, but Mitch actually said, well, why don't you come and talk about an easy topic, reinventing the pharma industry, and do it in 10 minutes. So I'm going to do my best to address that. And I thought what I'd do is start with a simple question. Does Canada actually care about pharma innovation? And in order to do that, what I wanted to talk about was the, first of all, Minister of Innovation's mandate letter. And what you see in this mandate letter is no mention of any actual work with the healthcare sector with the Minister of Health. Works with a lot of other ministries, but no mention of working with the health ministry. And I think that's something that's really important, because when you look at now the healthcare mandate, there's actually no mention of innovation in pharma. So as an industry, we really need to think about, how we are perceived by individuals, by governments in Canada. And the truth of the matter is that we've got a long way to go to change our perception. And when we think about our perception, and Robin mentioned this earlier, we talk a lot about orphan drugs, and I've been up at this podium talking a lot about rare diseases and the impact of rare diseases on patients in Canada. And yet again, we see Canada is one of the only countries to this day, 30 years later, that still does not have any legislation or regulatory framework for orphan therapies and for rare disease drugs. And it's really a shame, because this is a situation where, once again, the federal government has taken a path to actually develop an entire orphan drug regulatory framework and essentially has shelved that and put that to bed. And that's unfortunate for those who are suffering from rare disease. Here's another example. Some of you may have followed this case, PMPRB case versus Alexion and the product Solaris. And what's interesting about this is that the panel had actually had recommended that Solaris now be offered at the lowest of 7 of the comparator country prices, and this is something that is unprecedented. When you look at the actual PMPRB regulations and rules, they actually say that a company should not be selling a product at any higher than any of the international price comparators. Yet the PMPRB has decided to enforce a lowest international price comparator, which is unprecedented. And this is a case that if you don't know about it, you should know about it, because it's something that could lead to hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps even billions of dollars in valuation lost from the Canadian pharmaceutical industry if that precedent is able to continue and is held up in federal court. So these are things that are profoundly affecting our industry, and the question really is, what are we doing about it? And so we know and we've seen what drug reimbursement is like in Canada, and we know it's a complex process. We know that it's challenging for each and every one of our companies to go through this process. But at the end of the day, we are the ones in this room that have to address this and make the change. So one of the things I did was I asked leaders, approximately about 20 leaders in the industry, about what are the top 3 challenges facing them today. And interestingly enough, the very first the first area was access. And of course, it's mainly to do with the bureaucracy, the timelines, the transparency of access, but by far and away, it was the #1 issue. And surprisingly, #2 was pricing and the PMPRB changing role. And then finally, we looked at our industry reputation. And these are all things that we have to deal with as an industry. Now, we talk about the industry itself, and I asked individuals, how do we change the perception of people within the industry? And one of the key things is that we ourselves have to change that narrative. And these are some of the verbatim comments from leaders in the industry about what it will take for us to change that and reinvent the perception of our industry in Canada. And what you see is that, our contributions seem to be undervalued. People don't understand, whether it be governments or other stakeholders, the value that we bring to Canada. And so that approach and that value, creating that value, really has to be supported. And we have to start talking about an integrated approach, and that companies working together to communicate that value is critical. And these verbatim, as I talked to more and more people and they shared their insights, it's very simple. Our customers are disconnected from our value and what we feel is important. And they have very differing views on what it is that the industry represents to them. And so I want to ask you the question in terms of reinventing the pharma industry in Canada. And essentially, what are the things that we can do as an industry to make a difference? First, seeking to understand our customers, taking a unified stand as innovators, or fully communicating our positioning and offer real solutions, or all of the above. Now, this is a touchpad question, so if you guys can set that up. There we go. So yeah, and I think you're bang on in that, the reality is that we have to do everything here. We have to understand our customers better. We need to take a united stand as innovators, and we have to do more. And one of the things that we need to talk about is, how do our customers see us? So the other thing that I did was I asked a number of our customers in terms of what are the things that matter to them. And what you can see from this, and it doesn't come out properly on the slide, unfortunately, but what our customers have told us is that they need to establish a system and put a system in place, and they actually feel that their system in Canada is working well. So it's very difficult for us to be telling them that, your baby's ugly, your system doesn't work well, when they think their system is leading edge. And so, I think one of the things we have to understand is that their perspective is that it's not about the system, because that's the system that they have and they're given. And what they want from us is how we can help to enhance the system. So stop coming with problems and start coming with solutions. And that's a critical element. The other thing, and again, I don't know why this is cut off, but the industry has been looking at this from more of a, how come you don't value what the innovation that we're bringing? And yet, the payers look at this as that, well, you bring innovation, but then you reward us, you basically take us hostage because you're charging excessive prices or high prices, and you're holding patients hostage as well. And the point of this is that if we don't start to understand our customers and understand where they're coming from, then how possibly can we come up with solutions that will help them? So it's simply put, from our perspective, and I think I've bastardized a few quotes here, but at the end of the day, the most important thing here is that it's up to us in this room to make the difference. It's up to us to change our world that we live in and make a difference for not only the patients that we serve, but actually the innovation that we represent. And that has to be taken in a different way. And so rather than just coming to a conference like this and saying, this is a great conference, and then leaving at, after lunch or after the presentations on the Hall of Fame today, we have to ask more about what it is that we can do for our industry and not what our industry can do for us.